Welcome back to Laravel Podcast Season 5, where every single episode is not about a topic, but about a package. And the package we're talking about today is one of the 2 or 3 most popular packages in the entire Laravel ecosystem, which is Laravel Excel. My guests today are, I'm going to butcher their names, but I'm going to do my best, Arne Schoenmakers, the founder of Spartner, which is the company behind Laravel Excel, and Patrick Brouwers, the software architect at Spartner and the lead developer on Laravel Excel. And for those of you who don't know, Spartner is the new name of a company that we all are more familiar hearing as Mott Website. So you'll probably see Mott Website / Laravel Excel everywhere. Spartner's their new name, so that's why we're talking about it. So guys, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. And could you each just kind of say hi and tell the people a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, so hi guys. I'm Arne Schoenmakers. As you just told the audience, I'm the founder. I'm actually, a founder that really started as a developer himself. I developed during my studies, made some money, actually paid for most of my student years by developing stuff with PHP. And when I was finished with my study, I actually studied international business, but was kind of a computer addict. So taught myself development and also did some courses. But when I was finished, I just decided to start full-time as a developer for myself on my own, developing stuff for random companies that I just walked into in the city. And that's 2004. So me being 42 right now, it's actually 18 years ago. So it's been a while, and now we've grown to a nice development team, of which Patrick is one of the architects. So yeah.
All right, Patrick.
Well, hi Laravel community. I'm Patrick. Brouwers is my last name, which is indeed very difficult to pronounce if you're not Dutch. You can hear that the rolling R I try to pronounce as good as possible. I've been working at Mott Website, which is now Spartner, for a bit more than 8.5 years, which was also my very first job.
Cool.
I've worked with Arne ever since. And since very early, we started working on Laravel Excel.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. It's a total pleasure having you. And I know we'll kind of get to know a little bit more about you and the package and everything like that. But let's start out with the original pitch, the elevator pitch for Laravel Excel. So if somebody's never heard of it, what does it do?
So actually, the pitch is on our website, laravelexcel.com. Supercharged Excel exports and imports for Laravel. But it actually started out as exports only, because that's the main feature that we wanted to highlight. Because it started actually right after us getting introduced with Laravel back in 2013. I guess we started on Laravel 4, 4.0, a beta version, and I think it was near the summer where we started it for a project, and we were actually doing our new, at that point, Mott website, and we were thinking of, let's make demos, and we actually had a client that was using Excel in a project, so we were working on that. And then we thought, and actually Patrick came up with a great idea. Let's do a package. And that was, I think, the birth of Laravel Excel as a package. We thought, let's make something as a nice demo for a website ourselves that you can just fill in some random numbers in a spreadsheet and press export, and then you'll get an Excel, and that will be really nice for clients to see how easily and powerful our work can be. But then for the developers, we thought, if we make it a package, and anyone using Laravel can do that by the click of a button from their database or whatever. And and that was just the first step, just easily creating Excel, having something magic happen within one click or one line of code, ideally, and adding that feature, which almost any content management or ERP system that we built has. It's just really neat, and Laravel didn't really have anything, so we thought, this would be great fit.
Yeah. So, and if we talk about the main job that it solves, I mean, you just said it very quickly. If you want to export structured data into an Excel, so XLS or XLSX, this is the way to do it, and it's super simple. It's almost to the point where when you're using it, you're like, did I need this package? But of course you did, because if you do it in your own, it's miserable.
Yeah.
But it makes it so easy that you're like, oh, it's just a single line of code. It's just kind of like, why should this not be this easy? So I'm very grateful to it, because when I've needed it, I've had to do Microsoft connected encoding manually before with things, and I just want to quit my job and go herd sheep. So the fact that you make it so easy for me to not think about that is pretty delightful.
Yeah.
So you did just tell me the story of the creation of the package, which I think is really interesting, because I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say, I created this package to show what you can do. So that's a really cool idea, that you just want to be able to say, like, hey, look, you might not all know what our capacity is or what Laravel's capacity is, but we're going to show you a really cool thing we can do. And the fact that it's tied to them just typing in random numbers and data, like, shows that this isn't a pre-made thing. Like, we just made it. So that was a really cool idea that you guys did that. I love that you open sourced it too. So it's not just proprietary to the two of you or to your team. So that's very cool.
Fun thing is, like, we started it as this random ID that evolved and evolved. And of course, everyone wants to give back to the community and grow it. And like, at some point, you really start to put effort into that. And but first, it starts out as just a brainstorm or an ID that comes from a certain need or something, and a certain ID. You just wing it and put some like minds and energy to it, and then you have something, and you put it out there, and it's a package, and you don't know anything about success. But then, if it because it becomes a success, or it got downloads at least, you start to think, should we actually incorporate this on a day-to-day basis, or weekly basis, or monthly basis? How much time can we spend on it? What is the value of that time? Like, because I used to be a developer, only like working as a developer, but currently I also have to run the company, have less time for development, so I have to think about these kind of things. What do you do with an open source package when you also have clients worried about how much time you can spend for them on a project? I think any developer doing it by himself has that challenge, but as a company as well, you need to think of things that we did, like, shall we allocate weekly training hours that anyone can do anything on any package, or just try some new stuff out that might be valuable for a client, but might also just be something to do and something to train yourself. And it might be really good to do it from like a recruitment purpose, that you meet developers and interact with them on challenges that they have, and they find you or whatever. And all those values, I think, came into the ID way after the fact that we actually just started it. We started it, and then we started thinking about it, and then we thought, let's just do this frequently, put more time in it, try to get it evolved, and you have these intervals that you put some more IDs into it and more time in certain periods than other. But yeah, it's been a really great ride. Currently, 38 plus million downloads. Like, it's amazing. It's such a high number. Like, you can't even imagine it. How many developers might be using it, but we're just so grateful that happened, just ongoing. And who would have imagined when you just started?
That's awesome. And I do, of course I identify with that, because at Titan we, make packages, and sometimes they're just there for people, and sometimes they have business impact for us. And I know that we'll have Spatsy on, again in the future. Or, well, we haven't had them on yet in this podcast. And the same thing, they're a business that's making packages, that's trying to figure out the interaction between your business and your package. So I love hearing kind of like some of the thought processes you as an owner of a company have behind, because we have the same things. We're like, we'd love to give you all as much time as possible. So for us, it's every Friday people can work on packages and stuff. But even then, how much, like you said, what can we do to make sure that everyone can work on our packages? There's still a lot of really interesting questions and challenges about it. So I appreciate you sharing some of those thoughts.
Well, we also thought of these things because we're not just saying you can only work on our packages. We thought, if you have IDs, and just like Laravel Excel started from an ID, just write it down, try to structure it a little bit so that you're not just browsing some kind of website and just reading, but try to target something. Like, do you want to do something with UI, or do you want to learn something, whatever, with make something for Tailwind, or contribute to a package that somebody else did, or do you do something with Laravel or PHP or like any kind of technology? And we just try to challenge our people and ask them, okay, if you have an ID, just spend some time on it, allocate some time. Actually, Friday is a really good moment for us as well to do this kind of things, because people are almost into the weekend. It's nice, and I think maybe that's the way forward to support these kind of IDs and get these new IDs out there as well. And
And I love the idea, and I know we need to move forward, but I like the idea very much of supporting the ideas that are coming from not just the leadership. You know, our best packages have not come from me. I don't know if any of our good packages have come from me. So, yeah.
Absolutely. No,
so I love it. I guess we have one, but yeah.
No, for sure.
Okay, so let's keep moving on, because I know that Arne and I could just talk business all day, and this is supposed to be not business, but I'm loving it.
Yeah.
So obviously the installation steps are just going to be a composer require, but are there any key setup steps or dependencies that you want to make sure people have heard about to make sure when they're using it?
Well, maybe it's good to take a step back and see how what's the backbone of the package, because of course we don't handle all the Excel generation stuff ourselves. In the back end, it's all powered by PHP spreadsheet, which we have been using since the very beginning. Before the Laravel 7 or the PHP 7 release, it was called PHP Excel. I think a lot of people have heard of it. So that's still powering our backend, and we're very happy with their contributions as well. But I think when I initially started working on this demo thing that Arne described, it felt different than the entire Laravel philosophy, and that's what I was missing. I was so enjoying all these fluent things that Laravel offers, and I just had the feeling that's what I want as well when I want to work with Excel, because Excel, indeed, like you say, it's not the most fun thing to work with usually. And it did evolve from now we're at 3.1, which is even more like doing the work for you. So I was talking about key dependencies. We have two generation commands, which is very similar to making a controller or making a command or making a middleware or a job. You can create an export and you can create an import. You can pass some parameters. You can say, I want to use a model as a basis, or you can use a collection or an array. Because I think the basic concept of every export is your data source. You indicate what your data source is. That can be a query, it can be a model, an array, a collection, and you can basically determine yourself how you want to load this data. The main use case, I think, of the package, of course, because it's a Laravel package, is to generate exports from an entity, from a model, from an eloquent model. So we made that as easy as possible. I would say that's like the main first step. If you install the package, you will create an export for maybe your users database or your orders database or your payments table. And basically all you have to do is run that command, pass the model in, and it will create an export class for you. And in your route or controller, wherever you want to put it, you call the export, and it will just make an export with all your database columns in that export. And of course, the next steps are then to configure your export.
Customize it however you want the data to end up.
Data formatting, mapping, that kind of. Same goes for imports.
I love it.
It's the same story. You import something to a model, or you import something to a collection, and you handle it yourself.
Okay. So, and that's the basics of what most of us are going to interact with on a day basis. We're going to say, here's the button where you can take an XML file that is structured like this, and we're going to validate it, and then we're going to bring the data in. Or here's the button you press where of all the ones you have selected, we'll export them out to an Excel. And that makes a ton of sense. Are there any lesser used features or cool tricks or optimizations or tweaks that people could do that you don't know if everybody actually knows about that you'd like to share?
Well, one cool thing that has always been in the package and that we developed actually for a client project is a way to indicate or to name certain cells when you're doing an import. Because we had this situation, I think Arne remembers this as well. We had how would you describe that? A weight loss company, like like a company that helps you, like people lose weight. They asked us to build a new system for them, and they had always been working with spreadsheets, and they wanted to have all that data in the spreadsheet. But these spreadsheets were very structured. Like in cell A1, it would have the name, and so it was a bit. But it was also possible that the structure was different for they had 3-4 versions of the same spreadsheet. And we would be able to identify these 10 are type A, type B.
Version 1,
So what we would do to keep the main logic, the Laravel logic the same, would be to map these cells to specific keys. And then we would just get an array with this is the name of the person, this is the weight, this is the weight loss, without needing to have like 4 different handling of the import. We just had to map which cell is which data, and I think that's something that not a lot of people know, but could be very useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, I certainly didn't know that. And even if you didn't have multiple of those, I still think the idea of being able to just do a one-time mapping of, column A is this, column B is that, even if it's not 3 different ways of it, still will probably make it a much easier,
this,
and
this
like you said, a much more fluid.
Less about columns, more about cells, because columns is a different story. Maybe something I can share later when we could possibly talk about future things that Laravel Excel will add. But this is specifically about cells. So you wouldn't indicate a complete column, but you would really like get a certain cell from the middle of the sheet, maybe Z10 or something. Get that value into an array.
Cool. That's great. So, we're actually right on to the next question, which is the development roadmap. So could you talk a little bit about kind of some of the plans you have for the future, including the one you just referenced?
Yeah, we do have some 4.0 ideas, because I think these ideas that we have are quite new and like add a lot of excitement to the package. And they mostly evolve around data, like the way you structure your data. So there's not a data source, but like how like the column thing we talked about before, like I mentioned, reacting to you, which basically means that it looks very much like how Nova works. You indicate that, okay, I want a text column in column A, which is the name. I want a datetime object. I want a number, or maybe money. Because I think that is like the biggest pain point as well currently for like if I have to implement an export and import, it's still quite tedious to define like, okay, I really want this to be a number in Excel and I want this to be formatted like this. And this is something that we want to make a lot easier in the future, like in this 4.0 release. And that's the same thing as it works for exports, it will also work for imports. It will, you can just say, so I want to export a datetime, but I can also import a datetime, which makes it a lot easier than having to do this all by yourself, parsing the date, looking for the date structure, parsing it to a carbon object and inserting in the database. That will all be handled by the package then.
So when you're exporting, like, so if I were to say I'm exporting this column in this particular cell is formatted like datetime, are you actually, with this goal, being able to send whatever command Excel knows to actually treat it that way? Because I was thinking, we can send it as whatever data we want, but I assume that by default Excel will just look at all of them as a string until you actually hit the like format as whatever. So you're actually talking about being able to send whatever command Excel needs to say format as this.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Actually does some auto formatting. It tries to see, okay, this is the datetime, so we will do some auto formatting on the logic. But when dealing with very big imports, we disable certain features to make it more performant. It also means that P2 spreadsheet has a lot less to work with because it doesn't have styles, and a lot of the information comes from the styles in this case. So by letting the developer define that this is a datetime column, we can make the assumption already on a very early level that, okay, whatever comes into this column, this should be a datetime. So we will try our best to parse it as a datetime.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Any other development roadmap plans that you want to share? And then let's transition from right into that. Where do you want help with any of that? And we can talk in a second about do you want any other kind of help. But in terms of that feature you just said, are you guys looking for help, or you already have the plans? And also, are there any other plans that you have going forward?
Yeah, so we have this one thing that we've in the pipeline because Patrick just mentioned the performance issues some people have, and we actually also encountered that and helped clients with that. That reached out to us commercially with an implementation on their thing that was stuck or couldn't perform. So we actually have something in the pipeline called Laravel CSV, so that we can actually get more to a baseline kind of version of data structure that can handle way more data than the Excel would be able to do, because Excel simply has a limit of the amount of rows that it can handle. So yeah, that is something that we're thinking about, how to get that out there, and if we want to do it under the flag of Laravel Excel just as a feature or as a separate kind of package that is more oriented towards CSV or like. So we're thinking about that to how to do that. But that might also be something that people can contribute on by either replying or doing something on social media to tell us how they would prefer to have that CSV kind of performance feature, what they've encountered themselves, because we're still contemplating on what would be the best practice to say, okay, maybe in some situations you don't want Excel, but you actually want raw CSV kind of structures as a data export. That might also really help.
And I totally understand what you're saying. You might be able to actually just say, hey, if you're running into performance issues on this particular one, switch this toggle. All the interface will still be relatively similar, but you're going to be doing it with CSVs. You have to tell the people, how to make a CSV, but all of a sudden you're going to get all those performance benefits without having to switch to an entirely different package. Because the League CSV package is fantastic, but switching from Laravel Excel to League CSV would not just be a toggle, right? It would be like ripping out your Laravel Excel code and then putting in your League CSV code.
Exactly.
Whereas if it's something that's built into to Laravel Excel or a parallel package, it might make the switching back and forth process a little bit easier. It makes a ton of sense.
Something that we have played with in the past, because we have we've had some commercial support clients for this in the Laravel community, for which we developed a similar package, and it was really intended at being like a drop-in replacement for Laravel Excel. So you could just keep everything in your export class. You only have to change the namespace and class name, and you get all the same benefits. Because on like my opinion on big exports is that you probably don't need an Excel if you need a big export, because you won't do styling, you won't do formatting. You just need the raw data then.
Yeah, totally agreed. I love it. And the same is probably true for the imports as well. When the people are uploading something that's so large that it won't process well as Excel, it's probably not coming from a human being that was creating it in the first place.
Exactly.
So
I
love it. Okay, so the one thing you mentioned for help and support is for people to kind of like get back to you and just suggest their ideas about what they think the best next steps would be there. Should it be a part of Laravel Excel? Should it be a separate package? Do they have any other requests? Is there any other support, whether it's programming or a Patreon or something like that, where people can say, thank you for Laravel Excel? What does it look like for them to say thank you?
Actually, we call Laravel Excel postcardware. So we would really appreciate postcard. We have a lot of postcards here at the office. We, of course, sometimes take pictures of them, and they're also in our short movie that we just released on the rebranding from MatUpside to Spartner. But we really appreciate it. It's just fun getting them from all over the place, and we have actually received a lot of cards to date. And
I love it.
Love to get more, of course. But you can, other thing contribution-wise, I think the community has already shown that they're really growing in the quality of let's say remarks that they're giving, because of the way that people currently use GitHub and those kind of things. Maybe Patrick can say a little bit of the background how you how that was improved. But I think the support tickets that people requested used to be maybe a bit of a pain, and nowadays they're way better, I think, right?
Cool.
Yeah, I think that really involved, of course, if a lot of people are using it, a lot of people will run into questions and problems. So I think there has been times, especially around the 3.0 release, that maybe 10, 15 tickets per day, and that's just not.
Wow.
You can't handle that on your own every day, because it takes up a lot of your time. And of course, I also have my day job to work for our clients, so I can't spend all my time on replying to people. And I think around that time we the GitHub released a feature called issue templates, and that really helped to help people structure their question, because if it's just a question with a pasted in piece of code that takes a lot of time for me to parse through and understand what they're actually asking, by asking a few simple questions that really helps people to understand their own problem. And I've even heard from some people on Twitter later that it was like a rubber ducking kind of thing. They would understand their problem and then think, I don't even need to create.
Don't even need help anymore. I love it.
Yeah, and I think
that's
last
great.
year GitHub even made the issue templates even better. Now it's like an input form, so you have to fill in the fields. You can't delete the issue template anymore. Plus, we split it into box, and in the discussion tabs you can ask any question you want. And the discussion tab is a bit more community driven. Everybody can, of course, help people with problems they have or questions they have. Well, we really try to keep the box tab, like the issues, really centered around things that really don't work, something that needs our attention, or someone else in the community who can PR it, because we thankfully also get a lot of PRs of people that need something very specific for their situation, and we see how it incorporates into our idea of the package, and we release their contributions in the next release.
That's awesome. Well, I think it's super clear what it does and how to use it and what's coming next and what kind of support you guys need. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we call it quits for today?
No, just think it's been fun talking about the topic.
Yeah.
We love doing it still. It gets us enthusiastic to do more in the future. Maybe have new packages coming out that also will get a similar success, but if not, then still it's fun to do these kind of things. And it's been a great ride so far. So super
awesome.
I personally think.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Sorry, if I could still. It's something that I personally really like about the Laravel community is this kind of synergy between the package developers and the package users, because we also started using Laravel and using some packages, and that inspired us to make packages. And I think that us providing packages hopefully has also inspired other people, and that's something that we benefit again from. So it's like an ecosystem keeping itself alive by providing packages and using packages.
Yeah, and collaboration. Everyone's trying to help, and each of us who's helping other people are also benefiting from other people's help. So,
and I would also ask,
That's a really great insight.
Also ask developers to actually tell their potential bosses to say there's value in actually working in job time on a package. Like there is value, and there's a lot of value for your people. There's value for the community that will pay itself back. There's value for your company as a show of skill. There's so much value, and I think several companies already do that fantastically. I think it could be a lot more that will help the ecosystem, help Laravel grow even to a higher level than it is currently. And I think there's so much value, and I think the developers seeing this should just try with his colleagues and say, okay, let's just get some time every week to do something, or maybe only once in 3 weeks, just something during your day job. It would just be great to have a frequency to get more people doing this.
Yeah. And as business owners, we can attest that it's not free, but there's value that comes from it. And you mentioned there's value to the employees. They're learning and they're growing and they're happier. There's values to the community because they're getting free work, and there's values to the company because, like you said, people can see our capacity as programmers. They can see our mentality of wanting to help people, and our name gets out there, right? Every single time somebody installs something that says Mott website / whatever, that Mott website now gets embedded in their brains a little bit. And so there's also a marketing benefit that comes from owners being willing to kind of make this time available. So I'm really glad you said that.
But then the problem is if you rebrand to Spartner, then you have a problem. But still,
the good news is they can just Google my website and they'll still figure out who you are. So
they're going to figure it out. Let's hope.
All right, guys. Yeah, well, it was a ton of fun having both of you on today. Thank you so much for this package. Thank you for your contributions to the community, and thanks for hanging out today.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
All right, everyone else, we'll see you all next time.